Okay. You found me through
Apocalypse. So I'm doing HCG, so I was doing all the research, and then you were highly recommended by a lot of like the different like chat groups and Facebook groups and whatnot. So I went ahead and I looked you up and I started watching your coaching videos, and they really like some of the stuff like made me like angry.
Yeah.
And I was like, why is this making me angry? And then I explored it a little bit further. I'm like, oh, because I have issues. So I was like, okay, that's why I'm mad at this lady, right?
Yeah.
So I started to explore that a little bit more, and I'm like, you know what? I know that I have issues. Like, I know that, but I didn't, like, the way you put it is just kind of like, oh, okay. Like, it hurts. It stabs me in the heart, but that's
it's
where
like,
we need to explore.
Yeah, it's like the cognitive dissonance when you hear something that's really true, but you don't want. It's like something you want to repress. It's like, I want that repressed. I don't want that coming out. And that lady's pulling it out without me telling her to do it.
And Robin, the crazy thing is I train on this stuff, right? Like I am a transformational coach, but I also I do business consulting and I do training. So I'm in front of people all the time. And this is the first thing I tell them. Whenever you feel that like little like wrinkle in your heart about something and you reject it, that's where you need to explore.
Yeah.
So I have to take my own advice.
That's hilarious. I love that you brought that up. It's so many people. It's like they get into my YouTubes, they hate it, but they keep on watching it. They're like, she's such a bitch, but it's so true.
I know. So I know that I need. So I'm 44 years old. So I don't know where to start.
Well, I have this.
You start.
Well, basically, I just want to recap what you wrote.
Yeah.
Basically, I just have a couple bullets. You're obsessed with your weight. You're sick and tired of it. You connect with these clients that are like, don't care anymore. Like, that sounds like heaven. But at the same time, you're fixated on the need to lose weight. You need to lose weight. You need to lose weight. You need to lose weight. And you want to be sexy, and you want to have this concept of being the best version of whoever that is, right?
Yep.
And obviously that includes some concept of what the body's supposed to look like, right?
Yes.
So that's what you wrote.
Yes.
You're on the HCG protocol right now. You're how many days in?
12.
So you're like 2 weeks? Almost 2. Is that 12 days of the very low calorie protocol or 12?
So the low
12
days
days
started Monday, so next month. So I'm a week and a half into the low
cal. Okay.
Yeah.
Is this your first time ever?
Yes. I never heard of it until I ran into a friend, and she looked amazing, and I was like, what are you doing? And she was like, oh, well, I'm doing this thing. And so I was like, okay, sign me up right away. So I started it.
That always says something, right? When you find something so freaking radical and you just don't even care because it's so promising. It's like, it's that mirage right there. Like, oh, it's a mirage. It's right there. It'll do it. I don't care. I'll sign the contract.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I did. That's where I am. Before this, though, like 3 months ago, I was having some health stuff and I knew something wasn't right. So I went in and I was diagnosed with hypothyroid, cholesterol, and triglycerides went through the roof.
Yeah.
And I've never had these issues.
Yeah, and those are all symptoms.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I was ready to get gastric bypass surgery.
How big are you? How big are you?
I was at 195.
How tall are you?
5'5".
I would be shocked if a doctor even let you do that.
Yeah, so, yes, but in my mind, it was real. So.
Well, in your mind, you're 500 pounds.
Yes. So, I started going, so a friend of mine who's a doctor was like, okay, you don't need to have gastric bypass. You need to, like, get some help. Mm-hmm. Because I see everything that you're doing. I run triathlons. I have in the past and, like, athletic things all over the place. So she's like, you need to do something else different. And I was like, okay, well, what? Like, tell me. I don't know. She's like, you need to go see somebody kind of like a team, like people who can help you. I was like, okay. So I started to go see a nutritional therapist, and she's helped me a lot from then to now. Like, I feel like I've progressed. But seeing your stuff, I think that I don't think that I'm going to stop seeing her, but I think that this is just a little bit more, like, healthy, I feel like, and can get me to a place where I need to be here, not even like physically, but just here.
Well, the mind stuff, it's really a matter, it's really foundational because it's a self-concept that really is what you're probably suffering with and the stress around it. So a lot of the symptoms you're describing to me would be it's very predictable for someone who's lived with chronic stress.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you may be coping. Like when you say I do triathlons, that to me is like, oh, that could be a coping mechanism. So you're still stressed. You just now have you're a slave to all sorts of coping mechanisms. So the physicality of like, I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, well, and the high cholesterol could be just because you're living with a much higher level of blood sugar, not because you're eating too much blood sugar, but because with stress, your body naturally creates blood sugar. And there's a whole lot of physiology behind that, but some of those symptoms should naturally go away if we actually get rid of the underlying issues.
I know they will.
Yeah, the survival, you're in survival mode, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, one of the ways I describe survival mode is you're in a third world state of mind. Does that make sense? Have you thought about that?
No, I haven't thought about it.
Yeah, so it's a third world state of mind. Meaning things are not right yet. Things are not right yet. I'm not sick, and the way that the brain and our perceptions work in terms of our animal instincts, because we are animals and this survival mode is actually very animalistic in our nature. We all have it. It seeks to feel that it has enough and that we can get more before we can relax, like the brain. So in terms of food, survival mechanisms around food, same thing. It's, do I have access to it? Like, do I have it? Is there enough of it? So there's a quantity concept in the brain around understanding quantity. Can I get more? So is it recycling? So I might have food today and I might have food tomorrow, but how am I going to get food next month? So there is that is always there.
Yeah.
And then and then the other part is it safe to eat? So people who chronically diet have kind of wakened the beast around that insecurity with food. And it is based on the study of human behavior. If we just look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, your relationship with food psychologically, that psychological awareness that I just described is one of the most sensitive triggers to survival mode because it's a foundation to life and death. Access to food, is it safe to eat? So we're highly sensitive to inflammation and what the brain does if it's not secure is it magnifies the importance of food. That's what happens. It's almost like your brain gets shoved into it, a magnifying glass. So all you see is everything distorted. It's so much bigger than it really should be. And so, and that's an amazing mechanism. There's nothing wrong with that, right? So my assumption, I'm making an assumption here, Maria, for you, this issue with your body image has triggered this issue with food. And so what happens is you have to constantly have self-control around food. So you're actually perfect. There's nothing wrong with you. Even obsessing over food and micromanaging food, all of that is very much what you would expect in a third world mentality around food. Unfortunately, though, the diet industry has convinced everybody that is an addiction or that you just suck. You're a piece of shit. You can't handle anything. You have no self-control. When the truth of it is that you're never going to actually control a survival mechanism that has taken millennia and has benefited our species to still be here. You can't just shut that off. And if you do, you're anorexic and you're going to die soon, Yeah. And to do it, it takes extreme isolation from reality. So, working mother, it's hard to do. So you end up being obsessive. And that ultimately, when people say, I just don't want to think about this anymore, what you're saying is, Robin, I'm sick and tired of being stuck in survival mode around something as dumb as food.
Yes.
I would agree. Crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy, but so.
Yeah, there's no but to it though. It's crazy.
It is crazy. Yes. No, it's crazy.
The problem, however, is that it's impossible when you're seeking that third hierarchy of need. Do you know anything about Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yes,
okay. That third hierarchy of need is this kind of tribal pack animal, also evolved part of our psychology, which is to be very aware. And our brain responds with life and death mechanisms to want to feel safe with ourselves, with others. So we want to feel included because that placates to the actual survival benefit of being in a group. You're more likely to stay alive if you are accepted into a tribe. And the theories around it in terms of why we're so, that dissonance around rejection, abandonment, disapproval, it's really, really impacts us psychologically, and it's connected with so much addiction and behavioral problems because it is so ingrained and so triggering to a death response. You're gonna die. You're gonna die. You're gonna die. That dissonance. Do something, do something, do something. That intense survival, fight or flight response gets activated. I mean, your skin freaking crawls if you get in an argument with someone you care about. You know, and that's what that is. So you're attaching, like the rest of most of our culture, this need to survive and feeling wanted to some concept of what the body looks like. And so when you do that, when the concept that you're attaching to requires that you starve yourself, relatively starve yourself, because we could say you're not in a third world actual environment, but you're trying to create a third world environment with food, living around first world quantities, right? What you're doing is essentially trying to fulfill a third hierarchy of need through a condition, through thinness or being thinner. You don't even have to be thin. You just need to be thinner. That requires that food, that makes food the enemy. So now food is not safe. Now food is you are now in a state of deprivation. Food is being threatened, and you're supposed to live around it. So it's like I'm supposed to live with the bear that actually is sustaining my life. So there's conflict between a smaller need and a big need. It's like chasing your tail, right? And so that's where the all nothing comes from. It's this idea that in order for me to be accepted, I have to be thinner. The need to be thinner, like when you said, I want to be sexy and the best version of myself. That's a feeling, right? And you're getting something out of that feeling. And it's more than likely, I'm going to actually ask the question and I'm going to let you answer this. I want to tell you what it is. When you think about that statement, I want to be sexy in the best version of myself. What is it you get out of that?
So I get to feel desired. I get to feel loved. I get to feel cared for. I get to feel successful.
Okay, all of that you are describing is the third hierarchy of need. You're trying really hard to make that need secure. So I have a question I want you to really think about. If the conditions to secure that need require that you starve yourself, or that you get approval from someone else, actually. Let's go there first. The conditions require that someone else desire you. Will it ever actually be secure?
No.
No. You're right. No. Now, what if that is just your desire? You want to desire yourself.
Yeah.
But what if the concept that you're seeking isn't really yours? It's a program from culture. I have to become what culture says to be desired. So it's a condition. Will it ever really be secure?
If it's me?
Yeah. But you're using cultural conditions, concepts.
Oh, no. That's why it hasn't been working.
Correct. Because it's conditional. So it's not real. It's conditional. Yeah, you'll feel, and this is what like narcissism. They say they don't feel it. Well, yes, they do. They feel it under very specific conditions. They have to have it under these conditions, so they do feel love when the conditions are right. So the problem is you become a slave to constantly seeking the condition, and it's never really right because the conditions, what they talk about with social science is we're going to set a standard and the standards rise. Rise. Because the idea is you always should be better. That's the concept. You should always be better than you are. Be your best self. Well, what is that? Well, it's better than you are. So we are inherently telling people they suck. So when you think about that, your third hierarchy of need will never actually get secured. And especially if the condition you're attaching, feeling loved and desired and cared for and successful, requires that you always, that food is your enemy. Now you got bigger problems. Because you're taking one need and you're attacking a more important need, thinking that you're going to actually reach these higher states of consciousness that you can only reach if you're not in survival mode. The animal brain. You got to come out of that animal brain. How are you going to do it if you can't get those bottom three secure? That makes sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I get that. I totally, I'm with you.
So the overall conversation right now with you is you're in survival mode. There's nothing wrong with you. Everything you're actually experiencing, which we haven't even discussed, but I'm assuming because you're animalistic like me, your issues with food, your issues with, the symptoms that your body's manifesting at this point, the overreaching, I assume, the all or nothing, the perfectionism that those are all symptoms. Those are all symptoms of a hardworking animal trying to get out of a third world brain. Right? And it doesn't make sense because we live in a first world environment with so much abundance, so much access to people, tribes all over the place. I mean, the reality of it is you have everything you need, more above and beyond. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with you. You don't need to improve yourself. Your body's totally healthy. It's doing exactly what it should be under the circumstance. Nothing needs to be fixed, but yet the programming of our culture thrives. It is making hundreds and hundreds of trillions of dollars telling you need to improve yourself for people to like you, whether it's going to church, whether it's, being a certain political party, whether it's you need to be more successful, you need to have a title, your body needs to be this way, you have to run a triathlon, which is fucking crazy. Make sense? Yeah. Think of all the work you're having to do just to feel normal, neutral, just neutral. You don't even feel great.
And everything that you're telling me, Robin, in my brain, I train on this stuff. And I believe that other people are perfect the way that they are, but you know what I mean?
Well, this is yes, because you're in survival mode. When it comes to other people, you can see that it's good enough, but you're holding yourself to higher standards.
Yes.
So you're letting them have the grace to do what's right and to do what's manageable and, let yourself be real. But I have higher standards. Yeah. So therefore, and you're stuck in survival mode. And that's why it's self-preservation. And that's how it's all wired. I mean, if we, when I say survival mode, keep in mind I'm saying you're in ego, you're in the narcissistic state of self-preservation, All of this is how we all are, every single one of us, in certain with, you know, certain perceptions and certain environments, and it's not a bad thing. It actually is beneficial to a certain point, but after that point, it's extremely destructive.
So towards. How do I get out of it?
Well, the first thing is we have to stop saying your environment needs to change.
Okay.
So by doing that, this is where you're going to hate me and say I hate her or she sucks.
Okay.
Those feelings are about to show up. First of all, you'd have to you need to stop thinking that changing your body is going to change anything. Okay. So the technique I use is eliminate any change. So if I have a 400-pound client, that 400 pounds you need to accept, and it could get bigger. So let's go up to 500 in your head. So we remove the problem from being a problem, and we accept it as it is. What that does is it forces your brain to recontextualize what it can handle. So I don't know if I'm explaining this very well.
Yeah, because I've seen you do it with other clients on coaching calls. Like I've seen you. So let me explain it back to you and see if this is what
Okay.
it is, what I understand it to be. So in order for me to really get to a place where it doesn't matter, I have to explore the boundary of really being at, like, now I'm 182, going up to like 250 or 230.
Or whatever it is.
Completely okay with that, like
yes.
having that be okay. And once the new parameters or not even parameters, once like that possibility is really truly explored and accepted, then it's like, okay, then you can get to another place.
Well, what happens then is your food is no longer under attack. So it shifts, it makes it's almost instantaneous how quickly your issues with food are just going to disappear because it's not under attack. And it won't make sense for why you need to micromanage everything. Why do I even need to pay attention? It won't even, that will seem odd. Okay. Right? Because if what is wrong is a concept and I accept the wrongness, it doesn't mean I'm, so for example, but Robin, I will never be sexy again. Okay, well then don't allow sexiness to be the condition you have to secure your sense of lovability as a human. So it's really just eliminating, removing the conditions, right, that you believe being lovable is attached to. By removing those conditions, first of all, you're going to have a huge sense of threat, wrong, bad, warning, because your survival mode is now connected to that because you've agreed to it. There's an agreement to it that has to happen for you to even, like, you have to believe that thinness equates to survival, right? It's like you signed a contract. So to end that, you have to go through, it feels like death process. And then once you come out of that, you'll realize how dumb it is. It really is. Like, really? And then what will happen from there is your relationship with food will have automatically changed without effort. Because your issues with food are only there with the condition of your thinness as the goal, right?
So I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that.
Well, of course you can't imagine that. If you could, this conversation wouldn't be going on.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful, but okay. Like,
well, right now,
I'm not resistant to it at all.
No,
I just don't understand how that happens.
Right? Well, right, but I would assume, and this is how I was when I was in this space, how can you feel good about yourself when you think you're ugly?
Yeah, but so here's the thing.
How do you get rid of the ugliness or the fact that you hate it?
Yeah, so I hate the fat, but I love myself.
Yeah, but that's
even that was that one. I don't know if that makes. I don't know.
Yeah, it does. You're. So I want you to know something. That was your intellect talking. That wasn't the truth.
Okay.
That was like, I love myself, but in reality, I can only feel lovable if I meet this image. Then I feel lovable. But so know the difference between the intellect of the mind, which is actually brainwashed. It's like, it sounds good. I should say that. I feel like I do. But the truth of the matter is, underneath it all, I'm extremely insecure with who I am.
Okay.
Right? So for example, I love myself because I have all these conditions. I'm a hard worker. And so you're creating concepts of why. I love this about myself. I love that about myself. But if there was like something to happen to where you can't do that anymore, the truth is actually going to come up because the conditions have changed.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. I accept that.
Well, so one way to do it is to actually go into the truth of the fact that you're going to do this HCG protocol. You're going to lose 20, 30 pounds. And when it's over, you're going to have extreme fear of regaining the weight because of the condition of 500 calories. How can you imagine the HCG is done and you're transitioning back and you're about to go from around 500 calories to about 2,000 calories. How's that going to feel?
Yeah.
Extremely vulnerable. And you're going to start to micromanage food in fear of regaining weight. What that's going to do is trigger your binge eating. Your overeating is going to come back. You're going to feel shitty about yourself. And then you're going to gain so much weight back. You're going to end up being 200 pounds.
So what do I do?
Okay, but that's the truth. Okay, so I just want you to know that is what's going to happen.
But that doesn't sound unrealistic to me. Like, okay. Yeah.
It's not. So, I'm not. That's the truth. Yeah. Under these, and it's not the protocol that sucks. It's the intention. Yeah.
I know.
You're using it to actually for emotional reasons. You could say, well, I have this and I have that, and sure, but in reality, you're using it to fulfill the third hierarchy of need, right? And so that's where, and because of that, when it's over, that fear projects right back into food, and it's gonna freaking blow up in your face because you're an animal. And animals need food. So yes, that's realistic. So the truth of the matter is you're going to be, just imagine, you're 85 years old, looking back at life, and you're 200 pounds. And you get to see, you're going to be 200 pounds. No matter what you do, no matter all the diets you waste your energy on, you put all of your emphasis in, everything you're doing to feel better about your weight is useless. You're going to be 200 pounds for the rest of your life. How's that feel?
It feels like I just wasted a whole lot of energy and effort on something.
Yeah,
like I wasted my whole life.
Okay, so let's imagine you're right. It is super wasteful because it's a lot of energy. I mean, it takes because of
I'm trying to take my business to the next level, and when I sit to do my work, what I'm supposed to be doing, I obsess about like pulling out the calendar and how many pounds I can lose and by when, and it's just
it is not, it's like a survival mode around something so dumb.
Yes.
Because it's not necessary. But anyways, but it is for whatever reason. So go into this because your response is so accurate. It feels like a complete and total waste, and it's excessive. It's not just, it's not like I lost, it's not a minor risk. It's a major risk.
I'll give you an example. My daughter just went to college. Like she's doing this high school thing. Anyway, she's in college, and she asked me the question, Mommy, if you had it to do over again to go to college, what would you do differently? I was like, well, I would, number one, not spend so much time and energy on boys. I could have, cured cancer with the amount of energy and effort that I spent on boys. And it wasn't even, whatever. So, when you're 20. And then the other thing is I would study more and make sure that I really did the assignments. I really understood them and not just kind of, did whatever I needed to do just to get by. But the boys thing really hit me. Even when I answered it, I'm like, that's the same thing I'm doing with the weight thing.
Yes, you are. I was actually thinking, oh, she's still trying to feel desired. And so you're still seeking that third hierarchy of need through approval. So you're still seeking approval. However, it might be your approval at this point you're seeking, which is, I want to reframe that. It's actually the approval of some cultural programming that you've internalized and now think is your Yeah. It's not you. That's brainwashing. That's that internalized programming. Once someone has internalized a program, they actually identify by it.
It's the Stockholm syndrome.
You got it. That's exactly right. You actually think I am trying to get my approval, when in reality, no, it's not even yours. You're trying to get a conceptual approval from the concept.
I have a question about the 200 pounds.
Yes.
I'm 85 years old.
Okay, well, I'm going to give you a new framework because you're right. It's a big waste. So now imagine right now you go to the doctor and they're like, you have a metabolic shift here. You'll never be thinner because your metabolism and it's like a cancer, like a fat cell cancer. And the more you diet and deprive, the more fat cells are going to proliferate. So you need to stop dieting and you need to stop caring about your weight. It will never be thinner than this, ever. You could, hold on, you could actually be thinner, but whatever you do to get there, your body will now require it permanently. So if it means you will permanently have to do whatever you're doing to lose the weight. So if it's through the HCG program, you will have to live permanently forever to be this thin forever. So the true nature of your actual body is now 200 pounds. There's nothing you can do about it. It's now wired in the genetics. It's how the body's going to be. Tell me your first feeling to that.
I feel relieved.
Oh, shit. You're much further along than you. This is going to be easy to get you out of this.
I feel relieved because then I just fuck it. Okay.
Let's think about that. Let's go in that space and actually go in. Let's feel this as if it's real.
Okay. So this is what I would do. I would go get all new clothes that would be super cute on me at 200 pounds.
Yep.
I would, oh my gosh, okay. I would.
Dude, you're beaming. You're beaming right now. Just so you know.
Yeah, because it's so exciting. I would go to Whole Foods and get a fruit tart, and I would just eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner because I love fruit tarts, and I haven't had one in a while. But I don't know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That would get a lot. I would. Just,
see, now you're getting it. It's okay, so would I really get a fruit tart because I can have it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the rest of my life?
But no, I would just have a little bit of it and enjoy that. And then I just would, whatever. I would just go and I would eat with my family. I wouldn't make a separate meal for myself. I would just feed everybody and eat whatever they're eating. And I wouldn't have to spend so much time on all that crap of having to worry about my own stuff. So, and then I would actually focus on Elixir, which is my company. And instead of pulling out the calendar, pulling out the calendar and putting the little numbers on the bottom of where I wanted to be, I would get highlights in my hair so that, it would frame my little round face, my cute little round face. And I would, put on a little blush, my little makeup. I would go get some makeup because that would just be fun. Not because I have to, but just because it would be fun.
You mean you'd start living? You'd start actually moving forward and living in your life? You'd push, instead of pushing pause, you'd push play?
Yes!
You'd actually push play. And so tell me this, how would it feel to know you don't have to care ever again? It's irrelevant. Yeah, so you're getting a sense of what it's going to feel like when you have your third hierarchy of need met, by the way. How's that feel? And then you're actually connecting to how easy your relationship with food would be, right?
Whatever.
Yeah, all of a sudden it's depressurized. There's no shame, there's no bad, there's no good, there's no shame, there's no pride, it's not this, again, it's what happens when your food is being threatened, it doesn't matter if you think it's healthy or not, it's being threatened, is that your brain gets shoved into it, a magnifying glass, and food becomes huge, right? And that's all you see. So
let me tell you something, Robin. Let me tell you, I just have to share this with you because I went on, my family's from Colombia, they're from South America. And And I didn't care about food. I was like, I'm in Colombia. I'm going to eat whatever I want. I know the food is healthier here. Like, this was the thing. Like, I'm like, whatever. I'll eat whatever I want. In 3 weeks, I lost 5 pounds without eating everything.
Yeah.
Like, I ate whatever I wanted. Well, I didn't eat everything. Like, it just didn't matter.
There was no bad. There was no good. There was no filter. There was enough food. Food was fine. It wasn't dangerous. And so your whole brain just goes, oh, now I can see better. So it's almost like your brain, think of it like when you're on a diet, you're looking through a telescope and everything is being magnified. And that's all you see is this magnified food, danger, danger, danger. That's survival mode. It's a beautiful thing. If you were in a third world environment, that's how you eat bugs. That's how you sift through berries, and it's super magnified. It's all your brain thinks about. It prioritizes food before everything else. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's brilliant. Yeah. And so if you can get rid of this need to be thinner, and actually, if you could just accept the body bigger than it actually is, then what would happen is you would bring forward the truth of who you are and let that run the show. It's like, why do you want thinness on your resume? Why? Why would you do that to yourself, right? Do you really want thinnerness on your resume? So that's what people desire you for. Do you want to be desired because the body is thinner?
No, that sounds crazy.
So let's erase it from your resume permanently.
I don't know. Like, there's so many other great things. Like, I'm amazing. I'm a freaking badass anyway. Like, no, thinness, no, I don't want, no.
Okay, so see how this shifts. It's, because if you have to be thinner, that means you have to diet. And that means your whole entire brain is now completely taken over by this concept of dieting and food and dieting and food and dieting and food, all for an illusion that you're going to be more desirable. So,
and I don't even want people to desire me for that anyway.
Correct. But notice that, but you do. So the truth of the matter is there's a fantasy attached to that thinnerness. That means that you're going to immediately be, and what it really is it's placating to your fear of rejection and abandonment. So if you have to be 200 pounds, don't you agree with that? You accept people out there who want someone who's thinner are going to reject me. And you know what? Great. I don't have to worry about it because it's built in to the body. It's like, I'm 200 pounds, I'm not going to change it so that someone else likes me. It is the way it is. And if they don't like it, they eliminate themselves. There's no work for you.
So my daughter's 15, and after watching your videos, I had a conversation with her, and I apologized to her. And I was like, listen, if by me, like, dieting and worrying about myself, like, I put any idea that you're not perfect just the way that you are, or that you have to be anything different, like, I'm sorry, because I don't want that for you. Like, I don't want that for her, so why do I want it for me?
Well, you have to feel it. You have to be, this is where it's different because you're afraid of that rejection. And so you'd have to go into, well, what does it take to be accepting of rejection? Because that's ultimately what your children have to be willing to face. And our whole wiring is wired to run away from that. And what I'm telling you to do is go into being rejected because you don't meet the standards of thin supremacy.
Okay.
You don't meet it.
Okay.
And you have to say, and does that define, and this is where you've been clouded because you believed this, and you can look back and go, well, I believed this as a child, so it was so naive and innocent. It was an innocent internalization at a very young age that couldn't see the damages that belief system causes. I couldn't see it.
I know what happened, or at least a piece of it. That it's just dawned on me, and I want to share it with you. So, I'm obviously Latina, right? So when we would watch the beauty pageants when I was little, the Colombians would always be like gorgeous, right? And like it was a source of pride for us. Like, it was like, oh, they're so pretty, they're so this, like, they got, like, you know, we'd be all celebrating if they won or whatever, like Miss Universe, Miss, you know, she's the most beautiful woman in the world, blah, 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 blah. And then, like, whenever people would, like, be, like, racist towards me because I was brown, I'd be like, well, we're Miss Universe, you know, am I, like, kind of, like, connecting that?
The beauty image. It's the beauty image you're compensating with.
Yeah, but I didn't even realize that I was making that connection.
Yeah.
And then I also do it with my academic success, with my professional success of, well, yeah, I'm brown, but I am very successful.
Yeah. So what that tells me is you believe in white supremacy.
Exactly.
You're compensating. And you shouldn't have to do that because white supremacy is a horrible, narcissistic piece of shit belief system for people who are so extremely insecure.
That's their problem, not mine.
Correct. They believe that crap. So you don't have to. So, and I think that's awesome. You're making these connections. You shouldn't have to prove yourself otherwise because what you're doing is legitimizing white supremacy by doing that. It's true. Therefore, I'm super smart to make sure you know I'm better than you. So you're a slave, basically. You're held hostage to white supremacy, in essence. Thin supremacy is it's identical, but it hits all races. White, black, gay, straight, it doesn't matter. It's like once we all kind of, so once we all are equal, we're not because you're fat and I'm thinner. I can starve myself better than you do. And that means that I'm a harder worker than you because I can starve myself and you don't have any discipline. Even though in the closet, I'm puking my food up because I have to binge because I'm human too. I'm just not going to tell you I do that.
Robin, this connection.
I'm sorry. It's probably really important for you to cry and really have a moment.
So powerful because...
Well, you're seeing things with... you're taking those... I like to think of it like you've been wearing glasses where everything is so big. You can't see straight. You see only the tree, not the forest. I have to fix the bark of this tree. It's going to save me. And you're not seeing the forest. So by opening your head up and giving you some distance, you can see that what you're trying to do, it is total survival mode. Third world brain, first world environment, because your third hierarchy of need will never be fixed because of the underlying beliefs that because you're not white European, you will never be acceptable. So you have to constantly overdo everything else to make sure people know you are approvable. It's like so inhumane and cruel. It is super cruel psychological warfare.
It's so stupid.
I know.
And I'm fucking 44 years old and I just figured it out.
No. It is not stupid.
It is stupid.
Well, it is, but the fact that you're human and sensitive to it, it's, you know what, I think sometimes too, people have to suffer a ton to eventually have the humility to let certain things, what it takes is a certain degree of humility to let go for 2 seconds. By letting go for even just 2 seconds, you get distance. You just needed some distance. You needed to see that. And I can see then why you would have so much cognitive dissonance listening to me. Because it would be like taking away the things that you've used to feel better about yourself or compensating. So it's like, if she stripped those from me, I'm just Latino. I'm no different than an illegal. It's so gross.
But even believing that is so, no.
Gross. But you're placating to that. Yes, because you're compensating.
You're right. I am placating to that because in my mind somewhere I believe this white supremacy thing. So, so I'm going to show them. I'm going to bust my ass. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to have a bigger house than you. I'm going to have a nicer car than you. I'm going to have a better career than you.
Yes.
I'm more articulate than you.
Yeah.
And my children are going to go to better schools than yours. And all of this.
And so you're holding yourself to real cruelty no matter what your circumstances. And so you're prone to feel shame because your standards are so high. And it's not necessarily within reach without having mental illness. So going back to the body image, you have to be thin, but it requires you starve yourself.
But what if I'm not? So what?
I know. So going back to, but the thing is, so what this would take is such a sense of awareness around your inherent worth, no matter what skin color, because you're human. You're human. And you could say, well, even if someone thinks I am inferior, because they think they can have that thought. I don't have to defend myself. They can have that thought. They can think that way because they're going to have their own karma as a consequence, because they have to be superior. You think about what this has caused you to have to be superior. So just let those people have to do what they have to do to be superior. They're living in hell with that belief system, just like you've been. So you could say, oh, you're right. I'm so inferior. Bye. Whatever.
So, okay. I totally get it. Totally get it.
Well, it now needs to, you can see it. You can be aware of it. Now it's a matter of, okay, well, what's it going to really feel like when, are you dating? Do you have a boyfriend? Are you married?
I have a husband.
Okay.
For 16 years.
Oh, awesome. So imagine you're dating. Okay, just imagine that. And you're about to put yourself out there at 200 pounds. Just put yourself there now, knowing that there are thin supremacists. There's a massive amount of people who only want people who are doing ketogenic, taking their nutraceuticals, doing their CrossFit, making sure they're running. And they are going to look at me and think I am a lazy piece of shit. So they're
just not for me.
Well, you have to go in your mind, because this is the animal aspect of awareness. It's just to say I'm aware that they don't really understand what's real. They don't have a sense of realness with themselves. It's all concept. They are aware of concepts. So they're projecting a concept onto me to filter if it's like, again, this is very human nature. If we don't really know the person, we're going to try to get a sense of if they're safe or not. And so if someone has put a belief pattern on white supremacy, thin supremacy, religious supremacy, they're going to kind of project that onto you first to just weed out, are you safe or not? And you can let them do that. You don't have to defend yourself. Because if you have to defend yourself, now you will never secure the third hierarchy of need, because you have to take care of everybody's perception of you.
Yep.
So if you're aware, so for me, one of the things that it's very fundamental to your self-concept. Okay, because we can say there's I've heard it described as there's the uppercase self and the lowercase self. Okay, the lowercase self is the fake idea. It's the concept of who you think you are and should be. So it's really attached quite a bit to the body. That's a lowercase self. Right? Because in reality, are you the body?
No, I'm clear. I mean, I get that. Like,
right. So
yeah.
You're not your history. You're not even your genetics. You just showed up in this body, and it's spontaneously alive, spontaneously capable of seeing and hearing and talking, and you're not doing shit. I don't even know how my tongue is working to talk to you. It's just doing it. Right? I'm not sure how my brain is thinking and conceiving this. I don't know how it's doing it. It's just doing it. And then I'm letting it come out. It's spontaneously occurring. I can't even claim that. Right? So what is it so the uppercase self, what is that? Well, it's a sense. I I do know, and it's very truthful, and it's always there, and it never changes. No one can give it to you. No one can take it away. You're born with it. It's a sense. And to me, it's a sense of lovingness. It's a sense of fun, excitement, rainbows, unicorns. There's this is how I feel, right? It's just a sense of kindness, laughing. It's so childish. It feels like just a child that is so innocent. It feels very innocent, and it's always there. It's never more than that. It's never less than that. And I can call that my uppercase self. So whatever that is, that's the only true thing about me. That's it. So this wavy curly hair, that's the body. I don't even know how this happened. It's graying. I'm graying. That's whatever's going on with the body. Do I need to pay attention to it? So there's a real separation. Many people, most people, 99.9% of people don't become aware of this until they die, until they're in the process of dying, right? And so what I am suggesting is you die. You give yourself the ability to feel the separation between the real and the false, the concept of you, the one that you've been promoting, the one that you've been worshiping. I need to be thin. That fantasy. That is not who you are. And most of that fantasy has been conformed by social programming. It is what you're doing is saying, well, these are seen as beneficial, so therefore that's what I want to be. Well, what are you really? What if you're not that smart? In truth, what if you're in your natural state, not the smartest in the class? Is that really such a bad thing?
No. Mm-mm. It just is what it is.
Right? And if someone wants to say, you're not very smart, you know what I would say? So true. And what's wrong with that? So that is the key, is asking, why is that wrong? What is wrong with being Latino? Why does that fucking matter? My body came here through an evolution for centuries and centuries and centuries of having sex. And here I am. Why does it matter? It only matters to people who are stuck in survival mode and feel threatened by tribes.
I get that.
So if they say you're dumb, okay, why is that a big deal? Why does it matter? Especially if it's true. Even if it's not true, someone relatively is smarter than you, which makes you dumb. It's true. You don't have the nicest car, so why does that matter? So all of those, you see what I mean by they're judging you relative to a concept, which means, yes, which means they don't really understand the big S in them either. They only have a concept of themselves, and they're projecting that onto you to see if they're better or less than. Survival mode, man. Their third hierarchy of need has not been met. It's not going to be met. They're living in crazy insecurity, depression. They're probably coping with some type of narcotic or drug or religion or body image issue, and they're miserable people.
When I train people, and when I do my conferences and my workshops, everybody who's there, if they're 200 pounds, if they're 100 pounds, if they're black, if they're white, if they're little, if they're I don't see that. I do see that, but I don't
It's irrelevant.
That's the word. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. And so, and even me in that energy of that week that we're together, I just wear what I wear and I do what I do, and if I wear makeup, I wear it. If not, I don't. It's irrelevant. Even in me in that time frame.
Yes.
So, I have glimpses of it. Mm-hmm. You know what? I've had glimpses of it, and I never was aware that it just is freaking crazy. What the hell? And I see it in my kids. Like, I have a daughter that's 8. I have one that's 15, and my son is 14. And, like, my little one, like, she, like, the way that they are is just the way they are, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, the big S versus the small S. It's like that. Yeah. But the thing is, this is because we're human and we are surrounded by other human beings who are also suffering from these survival mechanisms without awareness. It's good to know that I can live in this conceptual world that has these concepts, but I don't have to identify by them. When you identify by them, you're screwed. You're a slave now. You're now a slave to that system. And the system constantly rises the expectations. You will never, ever actually hit the mirage, period, ever. Because you're constantly seeking better than you are. The best version of myself. Go back and read your email. I want to be the best version. It's as if it's a version. Versus I just want to be the true self that exists, that's always been there. I just want to eliminate all the fucking fake facade role playing. Because that thin concept is a role. It's your role playing. Just be truthful. And when you are truthful, it's so dynamic. It's hard to predict. It's just you are. It is. But the truth of it is, if you know, when I was aware, I became very aware. I understand that in the essence of that vibrant child that I could feel, whatever that was, it really didn't intend harm to anybody. Good intentions, good integrity in any situation. And that's what I've been doing in such a twisted and distorted way, trying to be this thin concept. I really didn't mean harm. I thought it was the right thing to do. It was just, basically, I gave up my free will and gave it to the diet industry and said, here, I'll do what you tell me to feel better about myself. Versus just saying, well, if I only feel bad about myself because of these concepts that I'm not matching. The only way for you to feel bad about yourself is to compare your real self to a conceptual self, but to praise the concept better than the truth of the real self. So you're holding yourself to a concept that you think is a better version of who you are versus the truth of who you are. So when you look at this whole concept of body image, that's what that is. It's a concept of the way the body is that I internalize as who I am. So the body is symbolic of my value relative to these concepts of beauty, which you don't question because it's been dogmatically internalized as a sacred truth. Whoever would have thought the idea that you want to be thinner is really destructive, toxic, stimulating primitive survival mechanisms.
So, Robin, as you're talking, I just had like a visual, right? And the visual that I had is like me at like 150 pounds and me at like 250 pounds, right? And I'm looking at both of these women, and really, I love them both.
There's no difference. It's irrelevant.
Like there's no just as if they're participants in my workshop.
Okay, so let me ask the question: is there a difference between you in a thinner body and you in a fatter body?
So the only difference I would say is probably that I'm trying to really think about that. Is there any difference between me in a thinner body and me in a fatter body?
Very simple question, isn't it?
It's very simple.
Let me eliminate some of the confusion. You're blind.
No.
Okay, there isn't a difference. It's an illusion that you're thinner and better or fatter and worse. That when I'm fatter, I feel bad about myself. That's the difference. When I'm fatter, I feel insecure. When I'm fatter, that is
only physical difference, like
there's there are, like, if I was there's a absolutely physical, like weight or gravity or thighs rubbing, but is
that's what I mean, like if I go to the park, I mean, I live in Florida, it's hot here.
Yeah.
Like, if I go outside and I'm fatter, I'm gonna sweat more. But
so your sweating is normal. I mean, so there's nothing really much different.
Yeah.
And if you actually look at that and you say, okay, well, if that's we're not distorting anything anymore. We're looking at it like as it is with a clear lens. Okay, yeah, my thighs will rub. Okay, well, is that worth feeling shame about? Is that worth having an eating disorder or disordered eating for because my thighs rub together and I'm sweating more? Is that really worth removing all starches and carbs and dairy and nuts and fruit tarts for? I mean, what did they do 100, 200 years ago with their thighs rubbing together in a long dress? Did they complain about their thighs rubbing together? Or did they use powder? Did they starve themselves? What would it have been like to be in a real, an environment where there was no fat shaming?
You know, when I go, like, it depends on where I travel. I travel a lot around the world, and depending on where I go, people react differently to, like, different sizes.
Yeah,
so
totally. I mean, you're hot shit if you go down south.
I know. Exactly.
And I'm too skinny and bony.
Even when I go to Colombia, people are like, when I'm, like, super slim, they're like, oh, you know, you look a little bit like, you know, like you could use some help.
Have you been sick? Have you been sick?
Yes, I've been sick. And then the other extreme is like, oh, well, you know, it's fucking bullshit. It's so ridiculous.
Well, because people are not identifying or aware of the real self. They've almost, to me, put that in a dark space to instead seek approval from an alternative concept of themselves.
So what do I do? Like, okay, like, I get it in my mind, right?
Yeah.
Like, I get it. Now what?
Well, this conversation, and you need to keep on contemplating. It really is a matter of deep contemplation. Everything I do with clients is getting them to contemplate and saying, here's a view, here's a vantage point you didn't know existed. Let's look at this vantage point. You know, so I'm not telling you what to do. I'm guiding your viewpoints so that you can see things differently. Once you see things differently, it becomes more obvious what you should do. So you're on the protocol right now. Would I recommend you be on the protocol under the context that you started it? Fuck no. You're about to cause problems. I have this updated version of Weight Loss Apocalypse where well, it's not updated. It's actually like it is an update. It's an update. Where I talk a lot about the difficulty of the HCG protocol when it's used for people to feel better about themselves or the self-concept. So they're not doing it as a physical therapy. They're doing it as a psychological therapy. But they don't realize that, or it's like fulfilling that third hierarchy of need. When you do that, your issues with food are going to about to become massive because it's such a radical deprivation. But so the idea is that the protocol is to be used as a form of hormonal therapy. That has nothing to do with your weight. Your weight should be irrelevant through the whole thing. I talk about that in the original Weight Loss Apocalypse a lot. It's repeated, right? Weight should not be the issue. And so now I'm looking at, and so in that book, I talked a lot about the dysfunctional relationship with food. Well, this next version, I'm going to be just talking about, well, it's this, your dysfunctional relationship with food is actually survival mechanisms. That the issue really is a dysfunctional relationship with your body. You are very dysfunctional with what you think the body should be, how it should look, and you're using it as a way to identify your worth and and the use of the HCG protocol to improve your self-esteem, to all of that is inappropriate. And I do not recommend the protocol for that reason. I think it's actually quite dangerous because you're putting yourself in a position of a radical food deprivation, which can trigger these primitive issues with food very quickly. And typically the issues will manifest when you transition off the protocol. So in terms of you staying on it, that would, see, there's a part of you that's going to say, but I need to lose as much weight as I can while I'm on this because I've already started. I spent the money. I need to lose the weight. Let's just get it done. I've already done the loading. I'm already, right? You can stay on this protocol. You just have to get your head in a space. You have to make a radical shift because, to this being, if it's the body's deal, if the body has whatever makes changes, whether it's in the adrenals or the thyroid or in your ovaries, the hypothalamus with the pituitary, improving all this communication, awesome, it's the body's deal. It's not my deal. I'm not going to sit here and be pissed that my body doesn't lose body fat at the rate that I want it to, or that I'm being deprived. You know, it's a medical procedure that will have an end. And the ultimate goal is that you can go back into eating foods like a normal person and that the body can adapt with whatever it wants, however it does, right? You can do that. The other option is that you can be done and not finish this round, and start working on actually accepting the body for what it actually is. There's so many different answers to what do I do from here in relation to the protocol, in relation to, well, what do I do now with what I want from the body? You know, what do I want from the body? So that has to be reframed. What do I need from the body? What do I really want to devote my energy to when it comes to the body? How much energy do I need to devote to it? Because it kind of runs on its own. You know, this is all up to you. If you were to say, Robin, I'm on this goddamn protocol, I'm going to finish it, I'd support that. You need to get at least 3 weeks in on the very low calorie protocol. So you're almost there anyways. I don't know. I'm just rambling. What do you want?
What do I want? I have nothing to prove to anybody. I have nothing to prove to myself. It is what it is. I want to finish the 3 weeks.
I would recommend that, just being that you're already on it. And it is hormonal. It's a hormonal therapy, and it does have you. But I really would recommend that you work on completely separating this self-concept from the outcome. You need to be like blind to whatever's going on and own the process of the protocol because it's the right thing to do. Meaning, do what you're told. This food is what the food is on the protocol. You need to see it as a medical procedure. Similar to if you were to get a kidney transplant and this is required for you to donate a kidney, you would just do what you're told and you wouldn't feel sorry for yourself. You know what I'm saying? So we have to reframe. Same protocol. The protocol is not reframed. Your intentions, your integrity, what you expect from it needs to be reframed. You need to start erasing all of your freaking weight logs. It doesn't matter what weight you lose. It really doesn't. In the end, if you follow the way it's intended, you're going to regain some weight. Your body's going to do what it's going to do. Do you really care? You know, if you're okay being 200 pounds and you're free now, you're free to be that, you're free. If it's irrelevant, then it doesn't really matter how much you lose and if you regain weight. It doesn't freaking matter. It's such a minute detail. You get new clothes. Either way, you're going to have to spend money. Can you see how much easier this is when you just don't give a shit? So the goal is that it becomes here nor there. So right now in this conversation, you feel that. It's going to go away. It might. Might not. Sometimes people have the light goes on, they see it, and they can never forget it. I don't know.
It's just such a waste of time.
It's just dumb. I know.
It's so stupid. Oh my god. And then just like, for me, something that's really real in bringing me back to there is when I think about my participants in my groups.
Yeah. Is there weight on their resume? Is the thinner person?
Like, when I see them, I don't, like, I visually am seeing, like, my 250-pound self and my 150-pound self, like, in that room, in that group of 30 people.
Doesn't freaking matter.
And, like, that helps me. Like, that is, like, okay, this Maria and this Maria is just the same.
Okay, so let's imagine white Maria.
Okay.
How about Maria in a wheelchair?
Okay.
So the physicality of the body is irrelevant.
It is. And
I know.
I experienced that with other people, but seeing myself in that group, like that, like in that capacity, whatever that capacity is, okay.
I want you to imagine the type of person and the state of mind a person is to compartmentalize everybody in a hierarchy around their attractiveness. Physical desirability, which you know is relative to whatever kink they have, you know. Think about that for a second. It's kind of creepy.
Hold on, I'm here. I'm having a fight with the computer.
Okay, so what did you hear me saying?
Can you hear me?
No, I can totally hear you. It's just a little scrambled.
Let me go to a different space.
Okay, no worries.
I feel so light. No pun intended. All right, pun intended. But I feel like really great. Like,
you surprised?
Am I surprised? Yes, I am surprised. I am surprised.
I think the issue is you just never questioned thin supremacy. You never questioned that. You were using it as a coping mechanism. That is the problem. And it stays unconscious. It just drives you. It drives you. Well, you're trying to compensate for being...
I don't want to think that. Like,
well, then you question it. You just have to question it. Can you hear me? Oh my god.
Oh my god, I feel so happy. Like, you know, I really get like social, like something that's deep in my heart is like social justice and like being like, you know, people being like equal, right? Like for like not equal, but you know what I like people being people.
Yes.
And like
being given the freedom to be.
Yes. And so, like, I'm such a freaking hypocrite. Like, I was, like, having grace for people is something that I hold as a true value in my heart, you know, just as a human being. In the work that I do and everything that I do. And I wasn't having that for myself. And I just, like, I was torturing myself to fit into, like, to make myself white and skinny. Like, what the fuck? Like, oh my god.
You're human.
Like, really, that connection for me is real. Like that, like the skinny, what do you call it? The thin supremacy and the white supremacy. Like for me, that's real. Like that, it helps me to like
see it. You see it. I know.
Yes,
and it's real. People really are.
Has been uncovered.
Yeah, it's hard to. So the question you have to ask yourself is if you're okay with it in relation to you and the body that provides you consciousness and life and existence here. What do you need from the body? What is it that you need to feel that the body is good enough?
It already is.
I know, but what is it that you need for you to be good with the body? Like, it's good enough. It doesn't need any help. It doesn't need to be changed. It does nothing. It needs nothing.
I just need for it to breathe. Like,
you got it.
Like, That's it.
Some of the clients I work with go, well, I want to be able to run. I want to be able to. And I'm like, oh, no, you don't get it yet.
No.
It just needs to be conscious. It's alive and conscious. Everything else is like bonus. It's a bonus, right? So even if you're in a wheelchair, you're like, can't use your legs. Why does that matter? You're still conscious. You still have your essence. You still experience the world, even if you're blind. You have so much access to experiencing this lifetime. Why be a slave to complying to concepts to prove yourself in this lifetime? Why can't you just prove yourself to yourself and now you're free, infinitely free, to change your mind and change your life and do things differently in any variety of ways? It doesn't have to be one way. If you feel lovable and desirable from the truth within, and you see that the outside and other people's concepts of it has nothing to do with you. You aren't the body. The body is its own entity. It's doing its job. Now you get to experience life that it's giving to you unconditionally. You know? It's a beautiful thing to have that awareness. It changes a lot of things because don't you agree? It makes this whole diet concept seem so cruel. It is cruel, inhumane bullshit that someone is making a shit ton of money on. Even the concept of health is freaking crazy. What is health? What is that?
Oh my God.
You can leave the cage now. You can just leave. And just know you got a good heart. You don't mean harm to anybody. What else do you need?
You know, it's, when you said, like, when I'm 84 years old or 80, whatever, 94, whatever, and like, I look back at my life, well, I just had that opportunity right now at 44.
Yeah.
I can just, like, look back and be like,
oh.
But I have a bonus of I have another 40 years.
You hope so, right? Wouldn't that be amazing? So you have a lot of life to live. You're like a baby.
I know, and that's the craziness of it. Like, when I look back and I'm like, it's like I feel like there's like a before and after. Like I just had like the biggest like epiphany of
good. My job here is done.
Like for real. And whenever like it comes back into my mind, all I have to do is just close my eyes and envision like that room, and I envision all the Marias in there with my other people. Like, to me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
No, because the truth doesn't change. The truth doesn't change. Because it's the truth. So by trying to change your body, you're lying. That's a freaking lie. So you get to be in the world. You get to adapt, change your clothes, put on fake. None of that really matters. It's all a freaking costume. So you get to have fun. You get to enjoy the body and have fun with it. But are you really willing to be in hell trying to lose weight, obsessing in survival mode? Some of the most primitive states of survival mode around dieting. Like
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
So if it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Then can I feel good when I put on makeup? Like
yeah.
that?
Yeah, because it's a costume. Yes, that was what I meant by it doesn't even matter. Put on fake eyelashes. It's freaking costume. It doesn't matter. You're not identifying, I'm a better person because my makeup is better than yours. And no, you're just...
it's fine. Like what you said, it's a costume. It's like, okay.
It is. Yeah, you blend into the background. You're a human being. You don't have to go sit up in the mountaintops in some Zen distance from reality. You can be amongst other humans and have fun. It's freaking fun. It's a first world fun environment where you actually have makeup to put on. For fun. Or not.
Not for the third level of Maslow, but just for fun. For the fifth level.
Yeah.
Self-actualization is the fourth for the fifth.
Yes.
Which is freaking fun.
That's out of survival mode stuff. The first three, survival mode, ego, narcissism, self-centeredism, fix, obsess, perfectionism, no grace. When you bust out of that, all of a sudden you're like, I can wear makeup, I can shave my head, I could wear a costume. It doesn't freaking matter. Because I don't have to secure my third hierarchy of need with the costume.
No. Oh my God, Robin, I have to tell you something. So when I saw you and I saw the videos and it was like pushing at my, punching my heart, and I'm like, oh, I have to talk to this lady.
I hate her.
I know, I hate her. Like, I knew that there was something in my, something in there for me. Like, I knew it. I just knew it in my gut. And I was like, shit, I don't have $200. Where am I going to find $200? Like, I have it, but I don't, it wasn't allocated for this.
Yeah.
Fuck, where am I going to get it? So, you were like, PayPal. So I was like, oh, fuck. So I went into PayPal. I knew I had some money in there, but it's where my people pay me for I do retreats. So it's where people pay me for my retreats, right?
Yeah.
And some people, they're on payment plans. I don't even follow them. I don't hunt them down or anything. They just pay whenever they pay, whatever. That's not a good business practice, but whatever. It is what it is. So I went in there. I thought I had maybe $150 in there. I had $600 in there.
Well, there you go.
And I was like, see, because I was supposed to pay for this session, and that it just confirmed to me more. Like, okay, I need to talk to this lady.
Well, awesome. Well, you were ready for it. You weren't combative in any way. So
now what? So okay, I see. I'm gonna finish HCG. I'm gonna stabilize whatever, just as part of the process.
Yeah, don't focus on your weight at all. In any way. You can stop measuring because it doesn't matter. The body's going to do what it's going to do. Why do you have to claim it or take ownership of it? It's the body's will. It's not yours. It's not about you. There's a difference between the physicality of the body and me. Separate the two. This is the body's will. You're going to do as told as Dr. Simeon's, and you're going to let the body define everything. You don't need to measure your weight. You don't. You don't need to worry about it. You just eat when you're hungry, eat adequately from the allotment of food, and you do this, and then when you get rid of the HCG, you do the transition days, you eat more as hunger increases incrementally. Don't worry about your weight. If you start going into your weight, you're going to start noticing all this shit comes back. The freedom is going to go away almost instantly. Okay?
So when I start to worry about that, just kind of go back to my 30 people, my 30 different variations.
It doesn't matter. If I have to keep this thinness, I have to keep the crazy. I just lost my 4th and 5th hierarchy of need. I don't ever get access to that because I have to micromanage food to keep my thinness. And it really is about keeping what you get out of that thinness. It's not about the thinness. It's keeping success, keeping my lovability. I mean, do you really need being thinner on your resume?
No.
So don't worry about it. Even if you're thinner, do you really want to promote that as your benefit to the world? Look at me, I'm thinner. That's my benefit, my gift to the world. Like my thinnerness is giving to all of you. Do you really want thinnerness to be what secures Maslow's hierarchy of need 3?
And not at that price either.
No shit. No freaking crap. It's so narcissistic, so self-promoting, so gross. It's like saying I'm a white, therefore I'm amazing. What did you have to do with your, what do you have to do with the body and its fatness or thinness? Why does that fucking matter? And what happens as you release that is your issues with food will release naturally. The tension around food and the issues around overeating are directly related to your food being insecure. That has to be discussed. All of the science talking about food addiction, they are not discussing these hierarchies of need because they've lost the sight of the forest for the freaking tree. They're obsessed over a tree, thinking it's addiction, not realizing this person is a chronic dieter. You cannot eliminate deprivation and dieting and shame with food from the conversation. The impulses to overeat are in direct proportion to how deprived a person feels. Anyways, that's a whole other topic. Do you have any questions before we go?
It's a lot.
I know. I'm trying to write a book right now about it all. I am actually. Hopefully, we'll be published.
I don't know if this is like, but the whole white supremacy and thin supremacy, like that for people of color is just really like a very tangible. Like, use it in your book.
Well, the name of the book is going to be Thin Supremacy.
Yeah, like. Oh my God.
It's so real and true, isn't it?
I love it. Questions. So go through the protocol. Do what I gotta do. Stabilize, and then after that, I was gonna do another round, but it was coming from the other place, right?
Yeah, you really need to rethink your relationship, and even if you need to do rounds, because you really don't have a problem. You don't. I know. The body that you're living in is manifesting your old way of thinking.
But whatever. Like,
it hasn't done anything wrong. It does not need to be fixed. It's like you go pee when you go pee. Do you need to sit there and tell the body it's not peeing enough or it's peeing too little? No, you just sit down when you got to go pee. It pees, and then you move on with your life. You just trust that it knows what it's doing.
Craziness. Okay, so that was the only question that I had. I'm trying to think what other questions. No, if I need you, I will find you. How does it work if I wanted to do? I don't think for now I need additional sessions, but like if I needed some late, like maybe after I finish HCG and like I'm kind of in myself for a while, like maybe I have some other obstacles that come up. I don't know. Like,
you just schedule another consult.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think I need an ongoing thing because I think I'm pretty like I'm in a good place.
Yeah, so you just schedule another one of these.
Okay.
So. Congratulations! I'm excited for you.
I forget you in my whole life. You're like the most amazing. Like you are such a wonderful spirit. Like you're a gift. You're such a gift.
Well, I'm happy to help. I've been in that misery too, so I have a lot of compassion for it. And the fact that you feel like you're in the dark and you don't know anything else exists, you just are completely like unaware that anything else exists. Until you can see that something else exists, and then it changes everything. So I'm happy to aid in that process.
You know what? Like the thing that touches me the most is, of course, for me, and I feel like I'm gonna live a better life, happier life because of it. Like live in level 4 and 5. But at the same time, I get to teach this to my children.
Yeah. Oh, that's huge. That's a big deal. Actually, you're saving them from brainwashing, programming, and then feeling bad about themselves. Because that's really what they end up feeling is just bad about themselves. I know. It's so friggin' stupid. And we pass it down generation to generation. And you can pass down something different.
It, right?
Yep. Right now.
To raise them to be happy and free. And that is invaluable. And I just thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I'm happy to do it. Okay, you go think.
Writing you and like telling you how amazing everything is.
I would love that because I need some of that stuff for my book. I might use your.
Interview me further. Huh? If you need to interview me further for the book, feel free.
Well, I might actually use your request form thing, that quote, and then I'm going to put it with because it's such a great example of just that unaware of the best version of myself. And you were connecting it to being thinner, and you didn't even know it. It's like saying, I want to be whiter so I can be the best version of myself. Never questioning white supremacy as a belief that might need to be questioned.
Oh my God, that's so fucking ridiculous.
There's nothing wrong with your body. Nothing.
I can't wait to go and live. Like, I can't wait.
It's right there. Go get it.
If you need anything whatsoever for the book, whatever, just email me and I will